Hi everybody, today I figured we'd show off how we do the animation blueprints in Alice in Tokyo Wonderland. So it's really about just doing anything involving a blend is the only reason I use animation blueprints, so that bow and arrow she has, the way she blends between the weapons and walking, and then her run and everything like that. Lastly, in the air. But basically, other than that, I don't really use animation blueprints for anything else. So let's just get to it. Show it off here. So besides the event blueprint update, try and get player owner, you probably have this automatically in your animation blueprint. I cast to my character. And then after that, we're basically just setting things. Movement component falling is in air, automatically getting set once we pull this information. So it's always just going to be the exact same thing. And these are variables in the animation blueprint, but we're grabbing variables like locked on, which is a variable in my character in Alice. And it's just setting it to be the same thing every time that this ticks, which is going to be just a ton of time. So it's basically going to be the exact same value as whatever you have in your blueprint, your character blueprint. So is in combat, is set in fighting. The current style is always going to be up to date. The speed is just going to be the velocity and set by the vector length. If she's not moving, we're just going to set the direction to 0. And if she is, then we're going to use all this math over here, all this, which I probably just grabbed from the first person shooter since they had a blend of walking back and forth way back in the day that I just grabbed from them because, well, they knew what they were doing, so why not? And then that's just going to set the direction. And then up here, real quick, I skipped over the fact that I have a blend weight. I do set different blend weights. This is not going to use, but still I set different blend weights so that it kind of blends a little easier between the running. It's not so stiff, so it kind of blends between the running animation and the her holding her weapon animation. So there's some movement in it. So nothing's ever going to be all the way up to 1. Is she aiming the Yumi, which is a bow and arrow for her? And if she is, then we're going to do some more math here, getting the character rotation and then the actor rotation. And I can do a video on the bow and arrow specifically if people are if people want to see that. And basically we're just setting up her left to right movement and her up and down movement and whether or not it's inverted. Lastly, we're grabbing Alice, and from there we're just setting all the animation notifiers. There's just a ton of them that I'm using in here. There are a few I'm not using, but I imagine I'll be adding some in by the time the game's over. So I use quite a bit of animation notifies, but that's all so that I can do most of the work in blueprints, the actual my character blueprint. I don't like splitting up my logic in one section and then doing it somewhere else. So that's why this is just basically bare bones, basically down to the bare minimum I can kind of get it down to. That's just a run in the air if she locked on and using the bow and arrow. Other than that, I don't have any more states. I don't really like using animation blueprints if I don't have to. I'd rather keep it all in one section. So showing what we got, we just have different blends depending on which weapon she is using. So we'll have it run here. And then we'll just change the weapon and you'll see there her arms get a little bit wider out. Well, there we go. Tana, she holds it. Dual, she does that one a little bit more. Then large, she just keeps that one behind. You get the point. We're basically just setting it up that her stances change and everything depending on which weapon she has. And that's just what this is, this blend pose by thing. And I have different blend spaces, all blending from the walk to run while holding the blade. So really just the idle is changing on each one of these. And I'm just blending in from there, depending on the sword style, which we were setting earlier. And then lastly up here is just her face. And that's that fighting rule. If she's fighting, I just have her get a little bit more serious about it. And this blends in by just the bones in her face. Those are the only ones I have set, so it doesn't affect the rest of her body. And you may be able to do something like just take her spine and up or something like that, or her neck and up and affect it that way. And oh, sorry, that's this one. I'm doing it by dual, but no, it's this one right here that's doing the split by that. From there, just are we in the air or not is really the only transitions here. Sure enough, it's that simple. That's all I do there. You're not gonna really see that one too often. Same thing, are we locked on or not? And that's just going back and forth from here, and whether or not we're in the air or not again. And if we're locked on, it's the exact same thing. It's just if we're locked on, the pose changes just ever so slightly. And then the difference between there is Alice just walks while while being locked on. She slows down a little bit. And then we have the directional blends because she's always going to be facing her enemy forward. So we don't have her turn her entire body. She never can face away from somebody while being locked on. So we have blending from there. And that's just set in the direction. That was that whole negative plus thing that I probably don't even truly understand that I just grabbed from the first person shooter. And then once again, we're blending by bone. So we're only going to do it on her lower body. That's the only thing that we're really affecting by that walk turning there. Her upper body is the poses that are dependent on which sword style she has. And then lastly, again, we're blending by bone, so really just her neck and up to affect her face. Here, she's always going to be angry because she's locked onto somebody. That means somebody's on the screen, so we have an enemy somewhere. So she's always going to have that more serious look on her face. From there, are we locked on and we're using the bow and arrow, or we're not locked on and we're using the bow and arrow? Only transition rules there. And if so, then we're going to switch over to the bow and arrow here. From there, it's another blend space. This one just has 9, I think, 9 different locations: straight right, upright, straight up, kind of like a clock kind of thing. Just 9 of them instead, and a center. And basically, we're just going to blend between each one depending on the direction and whatnot. Sorry, not direction. I have it here. From left to right, from left to right, or the up and down. And that's really all we're doing. And that's setting up a blend space. If you guys want help in doing that, just let me know and I can do a video on the bow and arrows. Same thing with her face, whether or not actually this one's just always going to have that face where she's trying to look down the one eye. And that's that for my animation blueprint. I keep it quite simple. I'm not a big fan of really complicated animation blueprints. From there, we're just the default that we're taking out of here, just going into here. We're setting it both into the face slot and the normal slot. We blend by bone again, which is just a face, and that's that for Alice. And she's kind of simple. I try and keep it easy. It's even easier with the enemies. With them, all we're doing is just finding their velocity and setting the direction based on all these again. So we're setting the speed based on velocity, and we're setting direction, and that is it. It's the only thing that I do in the enemies. They only have one blend space walking forward or backwards. I don't have them do the whole turning or bow and arrows or anything like that, so it's really simple to set up, and they don't go into air. And if they do, it's an animation that I'm choosing. So it's nothing that they need to blend back down to. So that's all that's going to come down to. It's just these guys setting up, walking backwards and forward is really about the only thing you're ever going to get them to do. The only last thing I'll mention is that when you have a child blueprint, obviously, this is the default in this blend space, this idle, and that would look horrible on all characters because they're not all going to hold the same weapon this one does. So you just have to override that in child blueprints right here. I'll say override editor, and that's just going to override this node here with your own blend space. And this blend space has this idle in it instead. So this way, when he walks, he's not holding that weapon that other guy was. So he has his own idle animation. But for the most part, you can just keep doing child blueprints on and on and on with all your enemies, so you don't have to do too much work. That's going to be it for this video. Let me know if you guys want me to show anything, or if you guys have any questions. Thank you.